Hello everyone, welcome to Backyard Ocean. Here's a view of my 13,000 gallon, 40-foot long outdoor reef aquarium. The dimensions of the tank are 40 feet long, 8 feet from front to back, and the height is 5 feet. It's got four 4x8, 1-inch thick glass laminate panels. Each one of these panels is a little over 500 pounds. This is low E or sapphire glass. I have the tank actually split down the center where I keep the bigger angels, triggers, soon maybe to be puffers, etc. on one side. And then I keep more of the corals and reef safe fish on the other. We're on the reef side now. It's split right down the center. There's the surge tank going off right now. This happens every 5 minutes. Creates a surge in the tank, roughly 600 gallons every 5 minutes. I keep multiples of tanks in here of the same kind. I like things in groups. This tank started out 1 year ago, a little over a year now, back in June of 2024. And it's had its series of issues in the beginning where we had high tin levels, and they've since come down since we've added zeolite up on top. I'll show you guys here a little bit later. And then it's also had cyanobacteria for a good 7-8 months, all which have almost disappeared now. I think part of the issue was had very little livestock in here, very low nutrients. And now that I've got probably over 100 fish, feed heavily multiple times a day, that's kind of helped with that situation. A lot of these corals are really starting to take off now. These things, some of these started out with just little frags, little plugs. Let me show you guys the pumps back here. There's two main returns. The main one that I use all the time is the Abyss 1200 because it's super energy efficient, and there's a backup there in case it needs to. They have separate intakes, but they're keyed into the same output, if you will. And then there's a little reflow dart, I believe they call those, that provides flow to the protein skimmer up on top. I built this cabinet back here at the end where it houses most of these controls. Eventually all these relays will be controlled with Apex, which I have in here. I just haven't hooked it up yet. These are pool lights, LEDs. I have its own little sub panel, and then there's the controllers for the cannons in here. There's actually 3 wave makers in here. Let's see if I can show you guys that. There's one, and there's another one that's tucked in here, kind of hard to see. These things produce a ton of flow in here, mostly linear, but then when the surge tank Every 5 minutes it really creates a wave in here. And then there's one more on the opposite side of the tank, which creates quite a bit of flow. All right, I'm going to show you guys the top here. Okay, so we made it here on top. This is the view from the top down, which in my opinion is nicer. You get a sense of you're at like a tide pool or looking down on a coral reef. I've killed the cannons, the surge devices, so we could see down. Otherwise it's like really ripping in here, hard to see anything. So the tank is split right down the center with the A crate. I keep my angels and butterflies and triggers on one side, and over here we keep more of the reef safe fish. Even though I've had a couple escapees, butterfly fish make it here, which they haven't been an issue. They really don't pick on the corals. I don't know if it's because of the sheer size. They got plenty to pick on. I feed very heavily. So the tank has been 1 year, a little over a year now, and we've experienced over 100-degree days, and we've also had cold winter nights where it goes into the low 30s. There hasn't been an issue. I've got the tank split in different quarters up on top. Back here is where I keep my little clam garden. Planning on adding more as time goes on. Over here, we grow different types of macroalgae inside. I get this type of algae that grows out of the water line, above the water line. I think this helps a lot with keeping nutrients low. Believe it or not, I have a very tough time keeping nitrates and phosphates above zero. Even with over 100 fish in here and multiple feedings a day, very heavily. I know that we have them, but they're very low, which is a nice problem to have. Up here on top is where I start a lot of my corals to make sure they're doing well. I usually start them out. I got shade cloth over them, and then once I know they're doing well and I see a little bit of growth, I'll put them down below. In this compartment here, I keep multiple different types of shrimp. There's those red blood ones. There's a bunch of cleaner shrimp, and I've also added different types of peppermint shrimp. Here's the surge device getting ready to discharge. It is discharging, and that creates one heck of a surge inside the tank. So it helps with, just mixing everything up. Instead of having just that linear flow with the cannons, this really creates a wave. And in this compartment here is where I start out a lot of the fish after quarantining them, just to make sure they're eating well, putting on some weight before they go down below. And these guys are gonna get ready to put in here real soon. They've been in here for a couple of months already. So yeah. And then I have a cover in the back that I use to regulate temperature, especially in the winter months. Not so much in the summer. I don't have an issue. Mostly just use the chiller to keep the water at the right temperature. Now let me show you guys the rest of the filtration. Up here is the 600-gallon surge tank that gets supplied by the return pump. It's a 3-inch line that feeds it. It actually gets split down below underneath this tank here, and then it deviates some of the water to the, let me get in here and show you guys. So there's a titanium heat exchanger for the heater, as well as another titanium heat exchanger for the cooling. There's two tankless natural gas powered heaters. Each one of those things is 200,000 BTU. One is plenty, but just for redundancy, two, just in case one goes down, we have time to make repairs. And down over here, we have a commercial protein skimmer. And then I have ozone that we inject into it for about 5-6 hours a day. That helps quite a bit as far as keeping the water clarity. And then The water exiting the protein skimmer makes its way, let me step back, makes its way into this tank where I keep like zeolite. Like I mentioned earlier, we had issues with the high tin levels. That seemed to help quite a bit. There's also a probe that controls my calcium reactor in here. So, and then also there is a 130 gallon tank that I use to top off all RODI Kalkwasser. The tank receives roughly 200 to 300 gallons of evaporation a week. So that helps quite a bit. But I also use 2-part, so whatever it takes to make that work. The corals are really starting to take off now. I'm going to be providing updates to show the progression, the corals, the fish, and just the overall health of the tank. Okay, tell me what you guys think. Post your questions and your comments, and I'll try to answer them on the next episode. Thank you.